kiss my wife goodbye, and I run out of the house, and about 2 minutes later I run back in, and Maria looked up at me. She goes like, "What happened? Like why are you back?" And I looked at her, and we laugh every time we tell the story. I'm like, I forgot my shirt. I literally left the house with my pants and like just an undershirt, not even a real shirt.
Yeah.
Above and Beyond, the real estate show. Hey guys, welcome back to the Above and Beyond Real Estate Show. My name is Ralph Ciancio, and I'm here with my friend and guest, Colin Noble, realtor extraordinaire. We're back.
Episode 2.
Episode 2.
Exciting.
We made it to a
Exciting.
second episode. We didn't get canceled yet. This is a self-produced show, so not getting canceled is probably not a big win. But Colin, how you doing, man?
It's a win. I think it's a win. I'm happy to be back.
Yes.
I think episode 1 was a success. Great positive feedback, I think, so far. But hopefully we can continue with the awesome content.
Sure.
Busy weekend. I was in Winnipeg.
That's
but
right,
I'm
for
back.
the wedding. You were there for your sister-in-law's wedding.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was good times, busy times. Felt like I was a bit of a babysitter, but
You're a dad of a
I'm
newborn.
dad
Kind of,
now,
I don't
right?
think it counts as babysitting when it's your kid.
It's dad sitting or
sitting.
daughter sitting.
Okay.
But a lot of fun. I missed the heat wave here. I heard it was just incredibly hot.
It's crazy hot. It was like not just hot. It was just muggy. It was just insane. It was insane. But
crazy.
I guess it's summertime, and I don't think we should be complaining about hot weather in Canada.
For sure.
When we get it, just take it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I only complain because I have new grass. So
that's it.
A lot of
But you
water.
got a timer. You got a timer.
I
to
got a
water the
timer.
grass
I
now.
do.
That's,
I do have a timer.
yeah.
I do have a timer. How about you? All good?
I've got a timer for my grass as well.
Oh.
You know what? It was a great weekend behind. A lot of family events. Quite a bit of work as well. Which is always kind of the fun part about being a realtor is not only serving your clients, but making sure that you can serve your family and even serve yourself as well, right? I think it's really easy for realtors to glorify productivity and sales achievements and number of clients helped, but do your kids know who you are?
Right.
Yeah, so that's always the
agree.
balance is, hey, and am I just a frazzled mess? That's not a win for anybody either. So I think it's kind of the balance between being optimal in every optimal at work, optimal with my family life, optimal with my relationship with my wife, optimal with my physical health. And I feel like this weekend was probably a check mark for that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Work-life balance.
Yeah.
It's
which
important.
is
It's important. Mentally, but, physically and also, I guess productivity-wise.
Yeah.
But anyways, last week we spoke briefly about the market, more of like a general conversation. Yeah. Market stats came out the day or two after. Yeah. So let's jump right in quickly.
Yeah.
Talk for a minute or two about some data.
So where the numbers we're at, and we're talking about sales in the Greater Toronto area. This is a report called Market Watch, which the Toronto Real Estate Board pulls out every month. It's really a press release for realtors and for the media. It is available for the public if they just Google Toronto Real Estate Board or Toronto Regional Real Estate Board Market Watch. You can pull up any month in history and dissect the numbers if you really wanted to. But I mean, as we look at the numbers, we saw sales down year over year by 42%. Am I reading my Coles notes right? Yep. And we saw prices up compared to last year by 5.3%. So that's a little bit confusing for people because they're seeing this massive number, 42% down, but then 5.3% up. Do you want to break that down?
I think it's funny to touch on, right? Because a lot of the dialect and I guess like the media conversations happening right now is the real estate market's crashing, but actually the data is showing us that on a 12-month trend, prices are actually going up. Yeah. Not as drastically. I mean, earlier this year we were seeing 20-30% increases. Yeah. So 5.3% still good, but month over month. We're actually down 5.3%.
Yeah.
So that's why when we're advising clients and talking, to people, is think about real estate as a long-term investment, right? Yeah. We don't want to look at it month by month. We like even 12 months is a short period. So the natural trend, specifically in the GTA, is an upwards trend, and that's what we're seeing year over year. Yeah. I mean, the 41% decrease in sales volume. I mean, month over month, it's only down 11%. Yeah. So.
The way that I break it down is I believe that when we're looking at a year over year perspective. So comparing June 2020 versus June 2021 versus 2022. So those are annualized in the same month. And that's important because there are just cultural trends, things that happen every June. So it's the tail end of the school year. You know, we see that people are aggressively trying to purchase in April, May, and June because they want to be in their new home for the start of the school year. Yeah. So we know that that's something that is embedded in North American lifestyle. Typically, we would see a small tapering off in sales at the tail end of June. You know, graduations and vacations start. You know, but when I look at the year over years, I look at that as kind of like a line, you know, like a path in the woods. But when I see the month over month, I look at those as steps on the path. So, you know, you have to keep both eyes on the prize. I mentioned, I think on the last podcast or the last episode, you know, there was someone I was chatting with asking, how's the market? And I said, well, remember last year when we got together and we talked about the value of your home? And he said, yeah, of course I remember. I said, yeah, it's about that number. You know, we saw the market really jump up in the, you know, later end of the year and that for sure the start of this year. And then we saw it come back down. So although the numbers seem like, you know, you could say it's pessimistic view that the market's collapsing, things are falling apart. Really, I think we're at almost par with last year. And I think most people would have been satisfied knowing that their home stayed the same compared to last year. For sure. And you just kind of omit the up and down that we saw in the last 9 months. Yeah,
for sure. So I think it's funny because a lot of the media attention is all about home sales and home purchases, right? But what I think the media is missing also is talking about the rental market.
You got it.
And I know in our previous podcast we mentioned briefly about the rental market, but I think today we wanted to dive in a bit deeper, talk about what's happening in the rental market, and you know, break that down a little bit for our listeners and viewers, because it is crazy competitive right now.
Yeah, you know, we talk about the real estate market and you talk about home ownership. And then you also can't forget about the fact that another type of real estate market is the rental market. And, you know, we ran some numbers before the show just thinking about what percentage, and I don't remember what the numbers you came up with, percentage of people that actually rent in Ontario.
So there's 15 million people that live in Ontario right now, and approximately 10% of those people are renters. So it's actually, I would say, a pretty significant chunk that we're not talking about. Like 10% of people, it's
a million and a half.
1.6 million people are renters out there. So a lot of people are affected right now with this crazy competitive market.
For sure. And I guess if we could kind of put a different spin on it, because that's what we love to do here in the office. I mean, Colin and I are great at seeing things and then spinning it and thinking from a different perspective. I think there's a lot of value in seeing the same challenge or opportunity from different perspectives. But if we said that there's 1.6 million people renting properties right now in Ontario, you could argue that the rental market affects 3.2 million people, because if there's a landlord for every tenant, you could argue that, you know, this is affecting basically 20% of the people living in Ontario, right? The rental market. And so, I mean, in terms of the numbers, I know you broke down some of the rental rates and, you know, some of the news releases recently in terms of increases to anticipate, right?
Yeah. So from last year, so let's say the trailing 12 months, we've seen a 20% increase in rental prices, and like the pros say that the forecast is another 15% in the next 6 months, which can be confusing because there is rent control, which I think you're going to discuss briefly, but I think that price increase is for new tenants. Right? So
which is what the trend is. So right now, you know, from an economics perspective, you have landlords out there saying, wait a minute, the market value of my rental has gone up 10, 20, 30, 40% over the last few years. Now, if the landlord is only able to increase it in the past was 1.2, 1.6, 1.8% per year, there's obviously a huge gap in your existing tenants' rent that they're paying you and the unit next door to you, how much they're actually collecting. And so what we're seeing is this kind of friction between landlords and tenants where there's a lot of animosity, I would say, just from hearsay perspective. I think there's a lot of animosity from landlords out there who are not collecting what they believe to be fair market rents. And there's a lot of trickery in terms of how do you get more rent out of your tenant. Now, you know, we do have rental controls in Ontario. It is governed by the province. There's the Landlord Tenant Board, which is basically the tribunal, the court system that makes sure that landlords are treating tenants fairly and should be. that tenants are treating landlords and the property fairly as well. I say should be because I do believe that there's a little bit of imbalance in terms of the power in a rental agreement between the landlord and the tenant.
Right.
And I do think that that's part of the problem from a big picture, a macroeconomic viewpoint. I think the reason why rental rates have gone up so high is because there's so much bureaucracy and red tape for landlords. Mm-hmm. You're basically are almost powerless as a landlord in Ontario once you have someone in place.
Right.
If they make their payments every month, doesn't matter if they bring in 30 dogs, doesn't matter if they have 18 guests a night, doesn't matter if they're causing disturbance in the neighbors. It's almost impossible from my own experience and from the families we've served to actually get a tenant to leave unless they're doing, the 2 or 3 things that would trigger them to be kicked out.
Right.
So I think that creates a disincentive for landlords. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the impetus of it all. The problem is landlords are not incentivized to buy real estate. That means supply for rental properties is lower. That means that rates for rental properties is going to go higher. Mm-hmm. The rents are going to, and we didn't even talk about like the elephant in the room, which is 500,000 new Canadians coming this year, like still to come.
Yeah.
They got to sleep somewhere.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to get more intense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think let's talk about why the rental market is so hot. Because I think that's, the overriding message of like what's going on. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it has to do with, in this time of year, I think it's people heading back to school in September. Yep. I think it's the COVID tail end of COVID, people back in the offices. Yep. So I think that's really driving the demand for rentals up with, prices of homes. I think still relatively stable, but on the higher end, the cost of borrowing, interest rates increases has put a lot of buyers on the fence who are now jumping into rentals.
That's exactly it.
So yeah, I've been working with a few clients downtown right now, and it's multiple offers on the leases.
Tell me about that.
Above asking
last
on
few
leases
that you've done recently. The last clients you've served. Tell us about that story.
One last week we were in Liberty Village. I think there were 16 offers on the lease. It was a $2,400 lease, and I think it ended up selling for $2,750.
Was that the one with the open house? They had open house.
Different one, but I saw there were open houses on leases. Unheard of.
Yeah, open house to allow potential tenants to come through, and you're going to hold back offers for your rental until Tuesday.
Crazy.
And I tell you, when you have 20 people fighting for the same property, those tenants, they better have their job letter stamped and approved, their T4s, their credit. It's got to be airtight and pay a lot of money. And what that's doing is creating, I believe, a level of classism in our society. And that's really what scares me because, not every family that we serve is coming in with a credit score of 850 with, $150,000 in income. And that's not the true profile of everyone in Ontario.
Totally.
But landlords, when the property is vacant and they're looking for new tenants, they're picking not only high rents, but they're picking high caliber, tenant on paper. And I say on paper because we can all be great people, and we can also be all bad people too. Yeah. But it does make it very, very difficult for some families going through challenges, maybe a divorce, maybe they had a car accident and, were not able to work, or maybe COVID slowed down their business and they don't have the income to support. Mm-hmm. They probably have the income to pay the rent, but it's really making, I think we're going to see some, issues in the next 6, 12, 18 months with homelessness, with fraud on rental applications because you're putting people into the corner. Yeah. Young family. The kid's got to sleep somewhere. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's a challenge.
So,
but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. We were talking about the market. We talked about the real estate market. We talked about the rental market.
Yep.
A few other things that notable in the news right now is property in Richmond Hill, all over the media.
Yes.
So a young family wanted to build a home. They tore down an existing home, a bungalow in Richmond Hill, and built a 2-story, or really 2.5-story home that's got the neighbors in an uproar. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if you had a chance to see the story or your thoughts on it. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
I think it's funny because people have this, especially neighbors. So a little bit of background. So the guy building this house, or the family building this house, he's actually been in the area for 9 years. So he lived in a bungalow there. He has a growing family. He has young kids now. So he's like, I need a bigger house. So what am I going to do? I'm going to build on my current lot that I have. So he, I guess, I don't know, maybe he involved an architect or engineers, but he, funnily enough, the bylaws of Richmond Hill for permitting and zoning and everything, he actually falls all within those parameters. So he didn't have to go to a committee of adjustments. He did everything within his own right to build this house. So, the height restriction's 11 meters. He built 10.97 meters.
Yeah.
So, the density calculation, I think it was 70%. He did 69.6%. So all within his rights. But of course, it's making a news story because there's bungalows all around him, and he has this towering mega house that some neighbors aren't too happy about. But I think, inevitably these homes that are 40, 50 years old will eventually be rebuilt.
Yeah.
But as a neighbor, I'd be like, oh, this is actually adding value to my house, I think. Other than living through the construction and the mess and everything else that goes along with building a house. I mean, you're doing it right now, so you kind of understand. But it's, a bit controversial. I think is a great thing.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned the fact that I'm building or doing a renovation right now. We actually just passed an important milestone. In my own calendar, August 8th, 2008. So 08. We broke ground on my first project on the company that I own, building custom homes. I had just quit Mattamy. I was a super there, building 2,000 homes for them over a number of years. And I quit because I wanted to do this on my own. I didn't want to build on someone else's guidelines.
Right.
So this story definitely hits close to home. I remember the morning of 08, I had set like 5 alarms because I was so excited. We were breaking ground.
Yeah.
And this was like a kid's dream come true, right?
Yeah.
I grew up on a construction site. I said one day I'm going to build my own homes. And I was like, tomorrow's the day.
Yeah.
So the first alarm goes off. Of course, I'm already awake before the alarm goes off.
Probably didn't sleep. Didn't sleep, right?
I jump out of bed. I've got my clothes lined up on the chair in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Grab my stuff. I kiss my wife goodbye, and I run out of the house. And about 2 minutes later, I run back in, and Maria looked up at me. She goes, like, what happened? Like why are you back? And I looked at her, and we laugh every time we tell the story. I'm like, I forgot my shirt. I literally left the house with my pants and like just an undershirt, not even a real shirt.
Yeah.
Like basically pajamas. Yeah. And I left and made it to the end of the street before I realized that I was so excited that I forgot to wear a shirt to work on my first day. But going through the process of actually building custom homes, going through the committee of adjustments, which is a process. You mentioned the fact that gentleman or that family in Richmond Hill stayed within the guidelines. Mm-hmm. If you are building a home in Ontario and you do not conform to the standard guidelines, you can go to the committee of adjustment for what they call a minor variance. Mm-hmm. The most common one we've seen, especially here in Markham, is the GFA, the gross floor area. So, basically how big is the land in square feet, and then how big is the property you're building as a ratio to the land.
Yep.
So, there are economies of scale. There's a reason why people build the biggest home they can. Mm-hmm. And it breaks down that if you want to build a 2,500 square foot home, a brand new furnace for that home may cost you right now $5,000. Mm-hmm. If you build a 6,000 square foot home, or maybe smaller, 5,000 square foot home, it may cost you only $1,000 more for a bigger furnace.
Right.
So the actual cost per square foot for furnace is a lot less.
Right.
And you can multiply that by the 280 elements in a home that you consider. Yep. So it's actually cheaper per square foot to build a much bigger home. Not to mention, if you're going to go through the whole process of buying a home, tearing it down, and building, you want to build what you have envisioned. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about the idea of the neighbors getting involved in this story in specific, it's the Ratepayers Association that really put up a fuss. And I may polarize our audience, but I mean my position is it's your home, you're spending the money on it. Your property tax will be reflective of the value of your home, which is contributing to everyone else in the area.
Yep.
And if my neighbor doesn't like the look of the home I'm building, that's not my problem because it's my home. Mm-hmm. Like just as if you were to paint your garage door purple, I don't have a vote in that. So why do you have a vote in how tall the house is? Right. My neighbors and I used to joke saying that we think you should get consent or the opinion of your neighbor across the street what color you paint it, because they have to look at it
every day.
Every day they're looking, right? Yeah. So that being said, I think that there's some reform that's probably required in the way that homes are built in the GTA in Ontario. Mm-hmm. Going back to our previous topic about rental rates, I think also the amount of red tape and bureaucracy involved in building a brand new home or subdividing a lot, the amount of red tape and the duration of that process is a huge disincentive for anybody that wants to do it.
Right.
I think you cut that red tape in half, you'll see a doubling of new inventory. You're going to see prices come down. You're going to see an overall improvement in the quality of homes. Right?
Yeah.
You know, in economics, we studied urban economics. When you buy a brand new home, let's just say you bought a home from Mattamy Homes as an example in a subdivision, and you spent $1 million on it. The economics of it is that about half of the value of that $1 million is in the land, in the dirt, and half is in the actual house itself, the structure. Now, over time, 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now, the house itself depreciates. That's why you need a new roof, you need new windows, you need to update it, because the actual structure weakens over time. Over time, the land value, the dirt, goes up in time. So, you know, fast forward a number of years, maybe the property's worth $2 million. Well, $1.5 million is the land, and $500,000 is the dilapidated house.
Right.
So that at that point, it only makes sense economically to tear down the house and then build a $1.5 million home, and now you have a $3 million asset.
Right.
So that's just the laws of urban economics, and we're going to carry on seeing it. A huge number of homes in the GTA are what are called wartime homes. After the Second World War, there was a surge, there was a shortage of housing, and there was these basic homes all through Scarborough, all through, you know, Etobicoke, you know, Mimico. You see these houses that are 20 feet by 20
little
feet.
bungalows, right?
Exactly. We just sold one actually on Birkdale in Scarborough at McCowan and Lawrence. And those are quick, easy to build. And those types of wartime homes were built in the 50s. And guess what? They were not designed to last 100 years. And their land is in a great location. So you're going to see this kind of build up to what I hope is a reform in the way that homes are being built.
Yeah, I think that's just the natural cycle of real estate, like you said. You know, like homes built 50 years ago are now starting to transform. So
and they're meeting the needs, right? They're meeting the needs of new.
Absolutely.
Of what do we need in 2020 to live? You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think over the last week we've seen the market pick up. I think personally, you know, our phones are ringing.
You got it. Congratulations to you. By the way, you got a deal put together last night. It was almost 11:30 by the time the signatures went through. I know you must be tired with a young baby and doing deals at midnight. Congratulations.
Thank you. Exciting purchase for our clients.
I know they're so excited.
Richmond Hill.
They're so excited.
So it's another great success story. But hopefully more to come. Great conversations today. I think you know, as we continue to do these episodes, we'll do our best to provide you know, topical information, but also some great content.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to provide value. We want people out there to smash the like button and subscribe. We appreciate the love and the support. We're going to carry on trying to improve every single episode, bringing value to you. And thanks again, Colin, for being here.
No problem.
A lot of fun. Let's get to it. Let's get back to work and make this a great
rock
day.
And roll.
Awesome,
Always
guys.
and
Listen,
upwards.
We hope you have a great week ahead. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
All right, guys, now if you liked what you saw, check out these other videos and be sure to subscribe. No, really, subscribe. I can wait. I'm in between shoots, so you can go ahead. I didn't hear the ding. I'm going to wait till we hear the ding. See you soon.